Public servants should be focused on serving the public, not any special interest group. And good governance should be an expectation and not an exception. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. Our topic of discussion today is the Great Divide, the rural reality versus the urban myth. Joining us this evening on the show are Karunaratne Paranavithana, former Deputy Minister, also the Politburo Chairman of the United Republican Front. Joining us this evening on the show is also Iran Vikramaratne, Member of Parliament of the Samaga Jana Balawegaya, Vijay Herath, Member of Parliament of the National People's Power, as well as Shanik and Rasmanikam, Member of Parliament representing the TNA. You can also join us in the conversation. The number to send your messages to is 076 656 5353. The number once again, 076 656 5353. To pose questions as the show goes along, on to my immediate left is Niresh Liathambi, who is the Consultant Director of English News at News First. So let's get the ball rolling today with Karunaratne Paranavithana, former Deputy Minister, as well as the Politburo Chairman of the United Republican Front. Your time starts now. What is your thoughts on our topic tonight?
Yeah, first of all, I wish to thank the organizing staff of the Face the Nation program for having us in this media discussion, giving us opportunity to air our voice with regard to the vital issues the country is facing today. In the same way, I appreciate your topic, the Great Divide, the myths, urban myths and rural realities. Right? So, as we observe the panel, we can see a notable absence of the government side. However, we have to refer the policies and actions of the government, given the relevancy, the issues we are talking today. So, first of all, we have to differentiate the two sides. What are the real issues? What are the rural realities? And what are the mythical manifestation of those issues? So then only I think we will be able to have a fruitful discussion. You are very correct in identifying these two blocks, that is myths and the realities. Actually, if you look at the rural side, the ordinary masses of the country, there are a lot of grave issues. The economic downfall and the scarcity of water and the irrigation setup, the problem, the medical setup, that is the drop of the quality of the drugs and the shortage of the drug, and the electricity problem everywhere in the country. Like that, there are a lot of real issues. But we have to, unfortunately, as you correctly understood, there are mythical manifestations. If you look at the classic, I'll bring a classic example. There is a kind of dichotomy now. See, the government, the responsible ministers also, they are propagating this two sides, the dichotomy. That is, do you want the electricity or do you want the rice, the paddy production? Like that, they are now reconstructing, the twisting issues. Those are the mythical side of the mythical manifestation of the issue. So, put it in a deeper way. I think former Minister Iran also will agree with me. There is a classical economic theory called comparative advantage theory in economics. Right now, it says that you can buy some products or service at low cost, rather producing it at a high cost in the local level. So it is advisable to import like that. So then some ministers say that rather than the production of the rice here at the local level, it is advisable to import rice. and you should give the priority to the production of electricity.
Right.
Like that, it is a myth. It is a myth comes from the, I think, urban elegance, sophistication. These are the myths. Like that, with regard to all the issues I previously mentioned, there are sort of mythifications.
Very quickly, I just want to know now, is the United Republican Front part of the Samag Jana Bala Vegaya, or is it a separate independent group?
We are independent party, yes. Independent party.
So does that mean that when you all formed your political party on the 15th of May this year, you all have also intentions to contest an upcoming election or a presidential election independently or separately?
It depends on the situation, right? It is premature to disclose our situation with regard to the upcoming elections right now. As a political party, we are newly formed political party. We are at the formative stage, so we very much concerned about our organizational matters as for now. Yeah.
Right, but it's safe to say that your political party is not affiliated with any political party at present in Parliament.
Yes, correct.
So you all act as an independent political party in the opposition right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you very much. Karunath Paramithana, former Deputy Minister, as well as the Politburo Chairman of the United Republican Front. I now bring my attention to Iran Wickramaratne, Member of Parliament of the Samag Jana Bala Vegaya. What are your thoughts on our topic tonight?
Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure I even understood your topic, because you talked about rural realities and urban myths. I'm thinking more about rural realities and urban realities, you see. The country is clearly in a big fix. The question is, what is the fix? People tend to quickly focus on the economy, but I think that the problems are greater than the economy. There was a bit of research that had been concluded, I think it became public yesterday or today, I don't know, by Verity Research and Vanguard survey, and it asked the question about, the Aragalaya. It's going to be 1 year since people vacated Coalface tomorrow, the 10th of August. They were there for several months, right? And the question posed was, did they actually achieve the goals and aspirations for which those people actually set out there? And I think it was 60% said no, they didn't achieve the goals. And this was an island-wide survey. Margin of error was not very big. And only 11% said they did achieve it, and the others were obviously not very clear. So they didn't achieve the goals. And then they asked a further interesting question. They said, in order to rebuild the country, right, should you give priority to stability over the democratic space? Because lots of people come to me and say, oh, it's good that it's over, stability is very important, and that argument is put, often people coming. And the survey showed that only 15% of the people actually agree with that. The vast majority of people, which was about 51%, said fix corruption and bad governance. 51% said that. And then others said about changing the economic system. That was a small group, about 34% again. So not small, 1/3 said that maybe the economic system, right, needs to be relooked. But the vast majority was on actually governance-based issues, saying that the governance needs to be fixed. Now, I tend to agree with that, because I think if you fix governance, the economic issues are easier to fix, because ease of doing business, Sri Lanka is 99 or something on the index, but in enforcement of contracts, Sri Lanka is 164 on the index. So these indexes actually show us relatively, kind of where we are. So to me, rule of law, right, laws delays is a huge, huge problem. And then democracy, right, and then the economy, you say. And I would say in that order, because if you fix the two, the economy will naturally come in. Now, if you look at that thing about, creating stability, right, because democracy, at least in modern theory, has the three pillars. You have the executive, you have the legislature, and you have the judiciary. What we have seen in the last few weeks in Parliament is a little troublesome and worrying. One thing that we saw was that the elections was postponed, the local government elections. MPs getting up and saying that his parliamentary privileges have been impinged on, and therefore the judges need to be called to a parliamentary committee to answer. And that's, I think, crossing the line. And yesterday I heard another minister, right, get up and say something to the effect that the domestic debt restructuring was an impinging on his parliamentary privileges. Now I think that MPs are taking this too far, and I think because the executive, because there are ministers who are saying this, executive is impinging on the judiciary, I think the president should take note of it, right, and the president should push it back, because this is why I'm saying, right, that there's an interference in the democratic process of the country, and that shouldn't be allowed, because the survey clearly shows, right, people are very concerned about the kind of life we live, democracy, rule of law. They're very concerned about these things, and this myth that has been created that the economy surpasses everything. So, coming to your topic, right, in terms of the economy, I might just say this in closing, like my colleague here mentioned already. There are very, very fundamental issues at the moment, and it switches from month to month. Till we started with food and nutrition kind of issues. Earlier we had, the gas issues, the petrol issues, and so forth. And now the medical issues have come to the forefront, and it's really impinging on people. Lack of medicine is one, and then emergency purchases leading to corruption, and then the quality of the purchases that are coming are questionable because of certain deaths and things like that, and then the lack of equipment, and the list on things like investigations and operations that people have to be, even to get, if you have a kidney failure, even to get a dialysis, right, you have to go to the hospital to get a date for a future dialysis. You see, the things are really, really that bad. So I think the realities are really hitting urban as well as the rural.
Right. Thank you very much, Iran. But before I let you go in the first round, a very quick question. Today, President Ranil Wickremesinghe, in his remarks to the nation and also the Parliament, mentioned that there are 3 members with the UNP. Now, the way that I recollect was there was only 1 member, and that was only Vajrabe Vardhana. Who are the other 2 members that he's referring to, Iran?
3 members of the UNP meaning?
Now there are 3 members in the Parliament representing the UNP.
So he may be referring to Manush Nanayakkara, Harin Fernando, and Vajra. That must be the 3, because certainly the other 2 who used to be members of the SJB have been expelled from the SJB.
So can they retain that position after being expelled from a political party who they represent in Parliament?
Yeah, strictly speaking, you can't, right? And this is a matter for the judiciary to consider, and not only to consider it, to consider it fast. Because if you look at the law and you look at the Constitution, right? The Constitution on this matter specifically says that determinations need to be done in a short period of time, and it even stipulates in some places suggesting that within 2 months. Now, the judiciary in principle sometimes has said something like it's not mandatory but more directive, right? And I have heard that, because I've had the conversations with President's Council and all that. But no, I always ask the question, the writers of the Constitution must have had something in mind to actually specifically put 2 months in it. So, your question is a very valid one, and I think that that's something that needs to be determined and determined quickly.
Right.
Otherwise, MPs get away by raising technical points, knowing fully well that they will serve their whole term.
Thank you very much, Iran Wickremesinghe, the Member of Parliament of the SJB. I now move my attention towards Vijay Herath, Member of Parliament of the National People's Power.
As a country, we are in a bankruptcy situation. Actually, it was happened because of the wrong decisions of the rulers, former rulers. The government is trying to build an idea among the people the economy is normal, but actually it is not correct. As far as concerned the last year, the first quarter of last year and the first quarter of this year, our economy has collapsed by 11.5%, by 405 billion. Actually, we faced more difficulties in industrial sector. In that sector, the industrial sector has collapsed by 23%. We can understand it if we analyze the garment sector and our construction sector, the totally collapsed. Though there are no gas queues or other queues, actually our economy has collapsed because of the collapse of the domestic production. As a result of collapse of the domestic production, people are suffering a lot. The farmers are suffering a lot, and large number of our peasants are suffering a lot, and the poor people who are living in the village level, they are suffering a lot. Government has reduced the allocation to the health sector, education sector, and not only that sector, they reduced Samurdhi funds also. They introduced new system that is called Aswasuma, reducing members of Samurdhi members. There were 2,300,000 Samurdhi members were there, Samurdhi and other members. But introducing the Aswasuma program, there are only 100,000. According to the IMF condition, government took that decision. After suffering a lot, the Samurdhi members came before the streets and demonstrated. After that, government said to those people, don't be hurry. There is another mechanism. You can apply again, and some people can submit some objections and appeals. The government said that there was a date, 10th of July. After 10th of July, they are considering those appeals and objections. And after 10th of August, they will start the appeal procedure. But today there was a news, all divisional secretaries and assistant divisional secretaries boycotted that appeal board, participate in that appeal board. The reason was the government has not introduced any criteria how to give Aswasuma donations to those members. Actually, there is no criteria. They introduce a new software package. There are some points are there, but the divisional secretaries and assistant divisional secretaries cannot use that form to give Aswasuma donation or not. That's why today they took, as a union, divisional secretaries union took a decision to boycott, to participate that appeal boards. Even social welfare board has not sent any guidelines to divisional secretaries, or cabinet or government has not sent any guidelines. Then how can give Aswasuma to those members? It is a big issue. But they are cheating. The government is cheating those innocent poor people. We have passed gazette in the parliament. It clearly said that only 200,000 people can be given those Aswasuma. Furthermore, we cannot increase that amount. If we want to increase that amount, we have to ask from IMF and World Bank, can we increase or not? because we have already passed that gazette in the parliament. It limited only 200,000. They know very well about that. The government ministers and other members know very well about that, but they are cheating poor people. We can discuss about your appeals and objections, and we can increase the amount of members.
Yeah.
It is totally false.
So just want to, before I move to Shanikin, does the NPP believe that there is a health crisis in Sri Lanka at the moment?
Yes, actually, health sector has totally collapsed because of the lack of funds.
Right. So my next question to you is, if you know that there is health crisis in the country, do you all also believe that it's a health minister who should be held responsible?
No. According to our point of view, the most responsible person is not only the Minister of Health. The whole government must be responsible.
Right. So is that why you all didn't sign the no confidence motion that was tabled by the opposition leader in Parliament earlier in July?
No, we have signed that no confidence motion. We can use that motion to say our objections, but what will happen if Kelly Ramukkala removed from that portfolio? And another person will come to that post.
No, because I remember, Vijay, if I'm not mistaken, there have been numerous occasions where no confidence motions have been brought to Parliament during the last few years. And the NPP has not supported such no confidence motions largely. If you look at the Uday Gammampila no confidence motion that was tabled, for an example, the NPP, the JP at that time did not vote.
No, we voted against him. Yeah.
The Uday Gammampila.
According to my memory, we voted against Uday Gammampila.
But you all didn't sign you all did not serve.
Sign is not the important thing, though we sign or not. We can use our vote against it.
Okay. I have a lot of questions for you later on in the show. I'll post to you on them momentarily. I now move my attention to Shanikin Rasmanikam, Member of Parliament of the TNA.
Good evening, everyone. In fact, it's my first time on Face the Nation, so it's hello to all the loyal followers of Face the Nation. I hear there's almost more than 150,000 of them. So good evening. Interesting topic tonight. I presume that I'm the only one who actually represents a district that is rural on this table.
And me too.
Sorry. Yes, yes, that's what I said, if I'm not mistaken. So,
no problem.
Batiklo district is a district that I represent, that I got elected from. And most of Batiklo district is considered rural to date. However, I don't agree with your topic about the urban myth. I don't know what exactly you meant by urban myth, but the urban poor, I presume, is the most badly hit right now through this crisis, because the rural communities, the economy has been a bit different. But if I was to give a few examples from my district for rural economy, I think the government has done everything possible to ruin the future of even the rural community, who otherwise almost live a life that is self-sufficient in their own regions. Now, if you look at paddy farmers, for an example, I mean, there was a consultative committee meeting on agriculture earlier this morning, which I attended, and the Honourable Minister considered that it was a mistake on their part by not informing, by not telling the paddy farmers which type of paddy to cultivate this season, and that they had buffer stock last year. This is just Batiklo for an example, that they had buffer stock from last year of a certain type of paddy. Therefore, the paddy marketing board cannot buy, and now they're considering purchasing this paddy for animal feed. So almost half the production cost. So, you know, it was a very simple matter. You know, if they had been advised to cultivate a different type of paddy that would give them, or that the paddy marketing board would buy, you know, almost 300,000 acres of paddy land that where paddy farmers cultivate, I don't think they would have to suffer as much as they are right now. So it is the same principle with everything. I think the government, since it's actually it's a bits and pieces government, that is how I would put it. I don't think it's a fully functional government. It's just a bits and pieces government of individuals who support the president, you know, from various political backgrounds. I wouldn't say parties, Even within political parties, we are told that different personalities within even the main Pohottua coalition, there are a lot of fractions. So this is what happens to a country when there's a bits and pieces government that runs the country. If you look at the whole irrigation crisis that just unfolded a few days ago, now they are all blaming the officials. It's all because of the president wanting to, give uninterrupted power supply, even at the cost of farmers. So this is again back to, without blaming the officials, the government needs to take responsibility on these matters. Having said that, president actually right now, representing a political party that I got elected from, a political party that represents the North and the East. Our primary objective is a political solution for this country. That is the TNA's primary objective. So even on that front, we don't see that there is sincere efforts done by the president. I know today he made some fabulous remarks in Parliament.
What do you mean by fabulous remarks?
Well, I knew you'd ask me that question, so I was waiting for it. When I say fabulous, things that people want to hear, things that the international community wants to hear, things that maybe our immediate neighbors want to hear, things that global regional superpowers want to hear, things that the Tamil politicians want to hear, Tamil people want to hear, and also in another sense, things that giving those ones who are worried about these solutions also a bit of hope that this is all nonsense, by adding so many layers and layers of complications towards to the provincial council system. Anybody who really looks into it will know that nothing's going to happen.
No, because when I listened to the president's remarks in Parliament today, he spoke very negatively on provincial council elections. But the 13th Amendment to the Constitution is all about elections. It's all about devolution of power, isn't it?
Well, see, this is exactly why I said. So you have taken it negatively. He has tried to address to all audiences, because it's such a long speech and he's made it so complicated that everyone picks a point that they want to pick on. Now, he's also said about giving back power that was taken away. He's also spoken about different aspects by strengthening
But mustn't that all come through holding a proper election?
Yeah, but again, that's exactly what I was saying, that it was as a politician, he's tried to, rather not tried, he's actually catered to all the audiences. So there are some of us who would actually believe that without provincial council elections being held, there is no point in talking about power being given back or all sorts of things. But then if you look at it, inclusion of, how can someone say, when he says 25% women's representation needs to be included as an amendment, if we say no, we have provincial council elections, everyone's going to say, look, the TNA is of the view that that we are marginalizing women. So how are we going to say no, don't amend it, have an election? He'll say, look, TNA doesn't want women in politics. So this is why I said, as a politician, it's a fabulous speech, but as a leader, it's an absolutely poor speech.
Thank you very much, Shanikan Rasamanikam, Member of Parliament of the TNA. So let's open the floor for questions. So I'm only flanked with you today, Nirvesh, so I have no other option but to look at you.
Thank you, Shamir. I think we'll clarify the topic a little bit. The great divide, rural reality versus urban myth. The urban myth we are referring to is that many people in the urban area of Colombo are yet unaware or less aware of the reality of the people in the rural areas. And when we say rural areas, north, south, east, west, upcountry, all of it. We at News First are very much aware of what goes on in all these areas. We have hundreds of correspondents out there who give us daily reports. We also work with the grassroots villagers ourselves through our major program called Gammedda, which I'm sure you all have heard of. It's been going on for nearly 2 decades now, and we work in all 5 districts through it, and in the most rural, most desperate areas. So we get feedback from those people many years after
we finish our projects. So we have a very clear picture of what's going on, and what has gone on for the past couple of decades or so. So we are particularly concerned about areas such as education, health, transport, which are all areas which government does provide or is supposed to provide. But over the past couple of decades, there has been very little improvement in these areas throughout the country. So this is where we wanted this show to focus on bringing a bit of reality to our urban viewers, because our viewers, they may go outside Colombo on weekends, but they don't venture too far from the highways, so they may not actually know the reality in the rural villages. So that's a clarification on the topic. So what I would ask Vijita as my opening question is, now with the farmers' situation throughout the country, but in particular we saw a lot of activity down south, what do you think is the solution to make sure that this doesn't happen again, because this will happen again, and it's something which, being a 70% agricultural country, I'm not sure of the number, but we are overwhelmingly agricultural, it certainly is very important going into the future.
Actually, there may be drought in future also. Because of that reason, we must have a real power generating plan. Actually, there was such a plan. It was produced by the Electricity Board, so CEB, but all governments couldn't fulfill that generating projects because of various political reasons. If we could have such a power generating plan, and we could have implemented such a projects in our country, we could have not faced such a situation. According to the irrigation law, the Udavalave tank must be filled first of all, because Udavalave was built earlier than Samanalave tank. There is a law, but government has violated that law. And if the officials and politicians, especially the ministers, could have taken their decision at the real time, the farmers are not suffering such a issue. They insisted to the ministers, especially the agriculture minister Mahinda Amaravira, but they didn't care about that. That's why they came to the street and started demonstration. After 15 days, government took a decision because of the demonstration and because of the media publicity. I think that is not the way. If there is a real, genuine thinking about the people's grievances, if there is such a government, the government can give the priority to the farmers. But they did not give that priority to farmers. They only think about their hegemony, especially the Minister of Power and Energy. He is a very arrogant minister. Because of that reason, the cabinet also couldn't take a decision regarding that matter. But we think if he...
No, I understand. Now you're saying the minister in charge is arrogant and he is overruling cabinet decisions?
Not, he is interrupting to take the cabinet decision. He was the person who thoroughly objected. According to cabinet minister's information.
But we cannot independently verify that, Vijay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it may be correct. But all other ministers publicly said that we supported to give water to farmers, but that minister and some others,
We heard the Minister of Sports saying that as well. He was against that move.
yeah. I think that is the lack of collective decision.
I remember, Vijay, last year, your candidate also contested to become the president of the country, Anrukumar Dissanayake. How would you all have done things differently? Now it's been 1 year to that election that was held in Parliament. How would you all have done things differently if you all were
within
in the driving seat?
Within a 1 year short period, we also faced some challenges. I think we must have a short-term, mid-term, long-term plan for that, because we have faced so many economic and social difficulties during last 75 years. Therefore, if we will come to power tomorrow,
let's just look at last year.
Yeah.
Last year, you all were contesting election. Let's say hypothetically, you all won that election in Parliament,
right?
And you all had Anrukumar Dissanayake as the president of the country.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, what would you all have done differently to that of Ranil Wickremesinghe now?
Actually, we can start a rapid what is called the production program in our country.
How can you start a rapid production program in the country? Elaborate that a little bit.
No, first of all, we must reduce, not completely stop the corruption and bribery in our country, taking tough action against them without considering their powers and their levels. We are taking that decision.
So you are trying to say that even now corruption is taking place in the country?
That's why that research clearly said that 51% of people clearly said that situation is there. Today also they are facing that. The people who participated the Aragalaya in last year, they had a hope to eradicate that issues, but that problem has not been solved yet. That's why 51% of people said that the corruption and bribery without reducing
would the NPP, would you all have gone to the IMF?
The IMF and UNO and World Bank, ADP, we are not against those institutions. As a member of IMF, we also have to go before the IMF. The problem was the earlier government, the Rajapaksa government, took a decision, no, we are not going to before the IMF. But end of that 2021, Basil Rajapaksa said that no, now we are going before the IMF. And the beginning of 2022, and Basil Rajapaksa as a Minister of Finance Minister, he said that as a government, now we are ready to go before the IMF. But because of the Aragalaya and other political situation, they had to leave. And the new finance minister has become as a Minister of Finance, the Ali Sabri. Just after he obtained his portfolio, he had to go to the New York to discuss with IMF officers with empty sheet, empty paper, without any pre-prepared proposals. Then IMF asked from our minister and officials, what is your debt sustainability suggestions and programs? Our officials had no any answer to that. Then after that, IMF introduced some conditions and proposals to us. And we had to agree with those conditions. That is not the procedure. If we were in the government, we will go in future. If we will go before the IMF, we will submit our own proposals according to our on behalf of our economy. Then we can discuss with IMF, and in the consultation of IMF and our government, we can come to the consensus middle point.
Iran, how is the support that you're getting from the NPP in Parliament? Because I see you all are somewhat vocal in Parliament with regard to certain matters. How is the support that you all get as the main political or the opposition party in Parliament from parties like the NPP as well as the TNA?
Yeah, I would like to rephrase what you said, because these are all independent political parties. So they don't support other parties. We discuss issues, right? And then we see on issues how we can come together. So that's really the approach. So it's not that we respect the independence of political parties, and on some policies we differ, and sometimes even on philosophical issues we can differ. But I think there are lots of things in common, particularly issues in common, right, that can be there. Like Member of Parliament Vijitha Heraj just said, we are all agreed on the health issue, if you take it. And the health issue is a real breakdown. And in a breakdown, there are many people who are responsible in a breakdown. It doesn't always mean that only the present minister is responsible, even the previous one. And because certain decisions, because it's decisions that were taken that have led into this. But ultimately, when you hold people responsible, you generally hold the person responsible who is immediately before you. That's normal. And therefore, that is why we have moved a resolution of no confidence in the present minister, you see. And I think that almost all of the opposition will come together on that. So it's an issue-based thing.
But even if you look at the numbers around, let's put together the parliament composition now. Let's put all the MPs who will join hands with the SJB on this matter. Still, for all, the government is going to win this.
So I think you should look at it like this. It's a question about if all of the opposition is together, that's what matters. That is a victory. You know why? It's trying to say that the government will win it anyway. We are in a parliament, right, basically, which is legal but not legitimate. Because when the revolution happened in 2022, people basically, even Gotabaya Rajapaksa was legal but not legitimate. Actually, what the new president should have done, really, to create legitimacy, is gone for an election. Because he doesn't have a mandate himself. That he should have gone for an election, created a mandate. Doesn't matter who gets elected, because that's a people's sovereignty prevails then. And then only he could have moved forward. But that hasn't really happened here. So if the opposition is saying that this is not really right, them having a majority in numbers doesn't mean anything at all, because they have no legitimacy.
But even if you cry and say that there is no legitimacy or whatever it is, the reality is so, you cannot change that reality. And they continue to rule the parliament and the government as well. And then you all are in the losing side always, isn't it?
No, I won't say that we are on the losing side, you see. Because I think that you can't ignore that forever. Things are really, really getting bad. People came onto the streets because things got bad. And if somebody is thinking that it can't happen again, it's not like that. If people are not allowed to give expression, right, it builds up into that. So at the moment, right, the opposition is working together. We can see the issues, we can see the economic crisis that people are having, right? And your explanation about the topic today, right? I think there is a certain urban population who fit into that. But the urban population as a whole is unbelievable, right? How the poor people are suffering, whichever way you take it. I'll give you the examples. If you take education, for example, and you take just the Moratuwa, right? There are 29 schools, one closed, so maybe there's 28 schools now. 2 are national schools. Other 27 are non-national schools. If you go and look at the quality of education between that and the national schools, there's no comparison. I mean, it's so poor. right? So there are rural schools also which fit into some of the high standards, and certainly there are rural schools also who are hugely. Most of those schools I referred to don't have a lab. People, the parents even don't have a smartphone, and when the COVID happened and they had to do online education, a lot of them were cut away. So really, when you say people are suffering, it's unbelievable. Then today there was a debate in Parliament, and they focused a lot on the fishing community. And this fishing community, including running along the southern coast, from Ratmalana, Angulana, Lunava to Moratuwa, going through Panadura and right up, and the rest of the country. A lot of it got highlighted on the rest of the country, right? Those communities, out of the 5,000 odd boats they were talking about, right, those multi-boats or whatever, they said more than 3,000 were grounded because people can't afford to put the petrol or the kerosene or whatever into the boat. So can you imagine the income levels of those people? So some of those are rural, some of them actually urban constituencies. If you go up from here through Nigambo into Putlam, there are urban and rural. So I understand what you are saying. There is certainly an urban community, and sometimes I'm wondering whether we are living in the same country. You see, when we see the lifestyles of that community, right? But so there is a really a problem. Right. So this you can't push this and say, right, that the government can get away. People really, a lot of changes are needed. To make those changes, you have to have a mandate, you have to have legitimacy, and then only you can actually make those changes.
So Shanikan, given the fact that the TNA is the larger political party in the northern east that represents the Tamil community right now in Sri Lanka, are you satisfied with the president right now? Because he seems to be making a lot of commitments, he seems to be making a lot of promises to you, because we saw the manner in which even before the president undertook a visit to India, he met the Tamil political parties and made his announcement and submissions to them. And even now, after going back from India, he comes and makes a special statement in Parliament and highlights the importance of devolution of power, highlights the importance of reconciliation, all big words, buzzwords. It looks all well and good on paper. Are you all satisfied with the president?
Well, it's not just this president. I think since independence, I don't think the Tamil people or even my party, the party that I represent, which is the ITAC, Ilangai Tamil Katchi of the TNA, my grandfather was a member of parliament back in the 50s and the 60s. I think since independence, I don't think the Tamil people and the Tamil parties are happy with any of the leaders of this country, because I think if the issues that we demand that should be resolved had been resolved post-independence, I don't think this country would be in this state to start off with. We wouldn't have had a 30-year-old civil war. I mean, the economy wouldn't be in these dire straits, if not for the war as well. So not just this president. It's a matter of neither any of the leaders, in fact, having the backbone or even the having the political will to resolve this issue. That is the main problem. So I think it will be unfair if I would just blame this president alone and to say that we are unhappy with him. Whereas Gotabaya Rajapaksa didn't even invite the Tamil political parties to, he didn't even want to meet us. He didn't even want to speak to us for 2 years. So at least this, like I said, this president, I think he knows, I mean, he's a very experienced politician, so he knows how to please whom, what to say to whom. So I think this is just, like I said, this is just for optics that we are being asked to come and meet and discuss things with him. But having said that...
So you mean to say this is all a play and a gimmick in front of the public?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, President, I mean, I'll give you a few examples. People can decide for themselves. I think as soon as President got elected through the Parliament with 134 MPs voting for him, I think that evening or the day after, he met the TNA and he said, what are your issues, and spoke about these issues. So whilst talking about devolution of power, resolving issues, Truth and Reconciliation Commission, on the ground, if you actually look at the ground situation, things are no better than how they were during the times of Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Land grab is still happening, military is acquiring private land, the pasture land that belongs to the Mahaveli, different people are encroaching. Even in Parliament, I said, when I spoke to the Minister in charge, Roshan Ranasinghe, he said, Balamu, Balamu. I said, no, this is not a Balamu, Balamu kind of issue. You need to, I mean, you're the Minister in charge. I'm telling you that your lands are being encroached. He said, Balamu, Balamu, and just walked off. He said, Balamu yesterday. I said this in Parliament today. So lands are being, so land grabs are happening, and archaeology, related issues continue. So if President, I mean, if he really wants to put a hold on some of these issues, he can use his executive power to stall some of these activities, at least whilst we speak, whilst these discussions are going on. So last year, as soon as he got elected through the Parliament, he met us. We told him all these issues. And then later, towards the end of the year, he said, by the 4th of February, I will resolve the national question. So even then, we had our doubts. But then the events that happened after that, if you look at it, President said that, and a couple of weeks later, there were some monks who came outside Parliament and they burnt, the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. Now, do you really think that this was not orchestrated? I mean, President says this happens. After that, it dies off. And 4th of February, he says nothing about it. He says, another story again. And then all-party conference. So, I mean, we are not happy with what the President, if you want a yes or no answer, no, we are not happy. But at the same time, I really want to highlight, emphasize on this fact is that, even if we are not happy, laws are being passed in this country. Even if we are not happy, President and, through their parliamentary majority, they are pushing things through. So likewise, if the President, right now, the President of this country wants to provide a solution that he feels that's his package or that's his solution, we are not going to oppose it. Let him, but that doesn't mean that we should change what we want.
No, so you all want 13th Amendment to the Constitution to be implemented in full, because we heard the President Ranil Wickremesinghe very clearly saying that police powers will not be discussed, or it's not up for discussion if he looks at 13th Amendment in full. Is that something that the TNA would be happy to engage?
So our position is that the 13th Amendment is something where we can start off on devolution, but that is not the end result. We need to build upon the 13th Amendment to achieve meaningful devolution is our party's position. So, there are some political parties who say that 13th Amendment is not even a starting point. Some Tamil political parties, but they are limited to their representation, limited to one district perhaps. So, this entire discussion about police powers, and it is already in the law. If the President is actually not going to implement or give these powers, he is violating the Constitution of Sri Lanka, like all these other presidents have done in the past. So what I was trying to get to was that I wanted to emphasize that let President do whatever he wants to do. I mean, just because we were opposed to the Port City Bila party. We were opposed to, even today, the betting and gaming taxes, the amendments, we are opposed to it because, they are, they are giving tax concessions to the rich, by halving the entrance fee of the, to go into a casino. Even the tourists don't have to pay. So we are opposed to it, but that doesn't mean that the President will not pass that law. So why is it so different? So the reason why he wants us on board is to fool the international community, to fool our regional superpowers. Just to say that I am the person who has resolved this. So we can't fall into his trap. But at the same time, see in Parliament today, he said that he has 3 members of Parliament. This is what I said in my speech today as well. If you only have 3 members of Parliament, and you're unable, like he makes it sound that he is unable to push through any legislation, then dissolve Parliament, go for elections. Why are you hanging on to a Parliament where he only has 3 members?
Karanatha Parivartan, I just want to ask you, what is the take of your political party on the 13th Amendment to the Constitution?
Yes, we must say that our party in a position that we, first of all, we accept the issue of the positive participation of minorities in political power, that has to be protected. It should be protected by way of maybe devolution, maybe of power decentralization or special representation at the center, either way. So there are democratic ways and means to address that issue. 13th Amendment is a reality now. So before we talk about 13 plus or 13 minus, you have to implement what now in the text, in the Constitution. So
you already agree?
Yeah, we
implement the 13th Amendment to the Constitution in full. So your party is in agreement to implement the 13th Amendment to the Constitution in full?
What is right now in the Constitution is the provincial councils, right? So we don't have provincial council. I think it has been lapsed for 5-6 years now. So first of all, have the provincial council election. So for that, you have to resolve some issues at the level of parliament on the system of elections, right? I don't know. You can go to the previous system or new system, sorting out some minor issues at the parliament. Anyway, before discuss about the other issues, first have the provincial council election. That is our stand in that regard. Yes.
Right. My next question probably would be an eye opener to you as well, Mr. Paranathan, but I'm going to ask you this question anyway. What was the mighty hurry in 2023, 15th of May, to have your own political party?
You know, now if you look at the country, there is a now.
Because those who are watching this power struggle that's happening within Parliament and outside may think that even partly Champika Ranamaka also has political ambitions to become the president of the country, and he's playing a petty political agenda right now. That's his trump card. For those who think so, what's your answer?
We don't think it in that line, right? There are 80 political parties. The number is big, right? Why you need another political party? Now, if you look at the political party system of the country, what is happening to the big parties right now? Those are, of course, any political party, it has its own wax and veins, right? But now, after this people uprising last year, now the all major parties, they are now waning, right? The country needs new political parties with practical solution to grave issues what we are discussing. So we thought that there should be a kind of press initiative in the political party.
But if you look at it, Mr. Paranathan, we've seen matters like the Viat Maga, for an example.
It's not a political party.
No, it's not a political party, it's a movement. Those were movements. Then we see now the NPP has, the JP is coming with a new name now.
Yeah,
the NPP
what's wrong with that?
No, there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
But there are political parties right now in Parliament. In 2023, what was the hurry to have a new political party? Is it because your leader has political ambitions to become the president of the country?
I think political leaders, they have political ambitions. You can't help for that, right?
Everyone wants to become
political
president,
ambition is a good thing.
Everyone wants to become president.
It's a good thing. You don't simply reject the prevalence of political party. It is a byproduct of democracy. Political parties, prevalence of political parties. So in that essence,
there is no problem with political parties. The problem is with agendas that these political parties have.
Look at our agenda then, right? We are providing some practical solution of the grave issues in this country, right?
Everyone is providing. No, NPP is providing practical solutions. SJB is providing practical solutions.
TNA
is providing practical solutions. Now United Republic Front is also providing practical solutions.
That is the beauty of the democracy.
Now, who must the people believe?
The people believe people have to vote at the elections, right? That is the beauty of democracy. You can't simply outright reject the prevalence of political
Because if you look at it now, the SJB has said that they are going to field their own candidate at a presidential election.
So good, yes.
The NPP also, they might field their own candidate.
Yeah.
Now you don't know where it's going to be.
Maybe you also should.
So thank you very much for that. But keeping that aside.
So take this as a beauty of democracy, right? You can't outright reject that. In that sense, we form our own political parties. But it is the situation will determine factors that whether we are going to form a coalition, enter into coalition. It is up to it's a future issue. It's premature to.
So, if that is the case, let's say your political party also envisages one day to become hold the top job in the country, the presidency. How would you all solve the national issue?
National issues, you mean
the Tamil national issue?
Yeah, that's what I said. That we are very much clear on that issue. The positive participation of the minority in the political power of the country has to be protected. First of all, there are many ways and means of according to in the framework of democracy to address this issue. That it may be power devolution. So we have that, right? Power devolution. Decentralization of power.
Is federalism something that your party is looking at?
We have not discussed the issue of federalism right now. First of all,
High time no. Now you are saying
every time is high. Every time
No,
is
you are
high.
saying you are
Our
running for
position is now we have the provincial council system. We have not implemented that even, right? First of all, we have the provincial council. Then there will be a fair discussion.
I'll ask Shanikan if you don't mind, Mr.
No problem.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Shanikan.
I wish I had your job.
Is that something, Shanikan, that you all are willing to look at? A discussion and federalism, let's say partly Chambika Ranawaka as a political leadership, because your political party plays a big role when it comes to the North and East. Is that something that you all will look at? Because it will be very crucial at a national election.
Well, I'm not the party's official spokesperson, so I can't speak on behalf of the TNA. But what I would say is that I think we should look beyond individuals and names. That is what I would say. We should look at the working plan that whoever puts forward, what their solutions are. Are the leaders brave enough to articulate their positions on key issues like the national issues, you know? Are they actually willing to go to the voters and say, this is what we are going to do on accountability? This is how we are going to resolve matters in terms of human rights violations that the country is accused of, you know, pre-election. So when I said that maybe we should put someone down, I have actually, I wasn't joking. This has been I have been suggesting this to my party, that we must teach all these parties a lesson, you know, using us during the times of elections and then giving us promises and then not implementing any of the promises till the next election comes. So put the Tamil candidate and ask all the Tamil speaking people in this country to vote for that leader. I mean, I don't know if my party leaders would actually even consider that as a real solution, because they wouldn't want to cause a divide. But I am saying that, you know, the youth are frustrated as well. I am a member of parliament now, but the question that I get asked a lot is that what has our party done for the Tamil people in terms of achieving a solution? They know that we work hard, and what we can only do is we can only try, we can only participate in discussion. So, I mean, whoever that our party should support, I would say should support a party that has a clear vision and are willing to articulate their position before the election, not just an hidden agreement inside a closed door, but publicly say it. I think last time, there are some political parties who actually included some of the solutions in the manifesto as well.
Now, Mr. Paranavithan, you mentioned the beauty of democracy being elections. So would that mean that the non-holding of elections would be the ugly side of democracy?
No, we don't agree the issue of non-holding election. We are insisting the government to hold the elections. It has been suspended right now, the local government election and the provincial council election. We openly declare that it has to be now those local government institutions should be in operative, right? So that is our position. That is the beauty of democracy. My point was in response to him, that beauty of democracy was you can't reject the prevalence of political parties in this country, right? That's why I wanted to mention. But I would like to refer your earlier comment, Niraj, that now you mentioned that there is a segment of people who are unaware of the political issues or problem. Yes, you can't help that. Anyway, there is a segment of people unaware of anything in this country. But if you look at the topic of the discussion today, there are rural realities we have enough discussed, and there are urban realities, and this is the problem. There is a urban manifestation of those realities, which they are not actually they in the direction of falsifying the real issues. So I will bring another issue. Look at the health problem in this country. So the whole problem has now reduced as the problem of the incumbent minister, Kelly Rambukella, and there is a no confidence motion tabled in the parliament. But what are the real issues in the medical sector right now? Are we addressing? Is the parliament addressing the real medical issues? Is the president addressing the real medical issues? Once all these problem comes as real issues, urban or rural, the parliament is discussing bringing the no confidence against the minister and replacing the minister.
Are you saying that's bad?
Are we discussing the real issues? What are the real issues?
Iran, that's quite an eye-opener. He's saying, are we discussing about the real issues and pointing the finger at the opposition who brought the no confidence motion? Are we trying to just change the minister and just make patchwork when it comes to matters of this sort?
No, I think that people are very clear that when you hold somebody responsible, that doesn't mean that all your problems get solved. But accountability is a huge issue in this country, right? I mean, today I was having a conversation with people on anti-corruption, right? And a new anti-corruption law has come in. And the issue in Sri Lanka hasn't been really laws. We welcome the new anti-corruption law for sure. But even under the old law, the whole issue was implementation. The present issue is also implementation. We have a better law, but implementation is going to be the issue. So holding people accountable is very important, and therefore holding the minister accountable is important. But that doesn't mean that all the health issues are going to get resolved by holding the minister accountable. We have to actually get into the details of it. So there are lots of details there. One is abuse of power, right? The other is strengthening the institutions. Now, if you take the NMRA, I heard the minister shouting and screaming a lot about, some things that certain individuals have done wrong. That doesn't mean that you scrap the NMRA and then you suddenly take power to yourself. No, you strengthen the institution. You strengthen it. The processes you need to strengthen. This issue came up even when it went into during the COVID period, when that whole NMRA thing, right, about approval of, the drugs. Then recent purchases that have happened under emergency. Some of those companies are not even registered. They have to be pre-registered, particularly when you are procuring things like drugs. So there are a whole lot of issues in the, Mr. Paranavithan is absolutely right, whole lot of issues but
the buck has to stop somewhere.
The buck has to stop for sure. I mean, there's no question. Somebody needs to be held responsible. It's not only, there are lots of other people who need to be held responsible, but we have to start somewhere. So we are starting really at the top in the political order.
But Iran, the beauty of representative democracy is that you are able to walk up to the house of your representative in the local government or the provincial council, knock on their door and have your views aired. But right now, we don't have provincial councils or local government. So would you think that a lot of these issues would be better resolved if we had elections and had those representatives? Because there are only 225 members of parliament, where there are about 8,000 representatives in all these bodies.
Yeah, I think for sure having elections definitely helps. What has actually happened? What has happened over the last few years is a centralization of power. Provincial council elections have disappeared for the last 5 years, right? No provincial councils, right? Then local councils are for 4 years. Then there's this clause that you can extend it by 1 year. That was also done. After that, that has also expired. So what is? When provincial councils are not there, the president appoints the governors, power devolves on the president, not on the people or the elected representatives there. It's in the opposite. It's a centralization of power, not a devolution of power. Then when you don't have local council elections, it also centralizes power in the president. Means all the commissioners are appointed for all these different institutions, and it's top down. So for sure, elections need to be held. There's absolutely no question about it. That will certainly help. I would like to say something about the president's speech today. On one hand, you welcome the speech. But on the other hand, I need to remind the president and everybody, we are all sworn to uphold the constitution of Sri Lanka. That's what we were sworn into. In addition to that, we also took an oath that we will not divide the country. We've done both, actually. So the question is, implement it, right? You have to implement it.
But for those who are watching the show tonight, and for those who think that the opposition is vying for an election because of a petty political agenda that they don't want to lose pace when it comes to the popularity that they have gained already. Now that is a question for even for the NPP for that matter. Now, if there was a local government election probably in March or April, there were notions that the NPP would have gained a lot of momentum at an election of that sort. Do you think, Vijay, that that pace that you all had the last few months have now faded away, and you all have lost that that push that you all had at an election campaign?
Beauty of democracy, if there is a beauty of democracy, real beauty, the election must be held at the proper time. Otherwise, there is no beauty of democracy. So we are in a position. The election must be held in the proper time. As I want to answer your question, the momentum has lost or is continuous. How can we say the momentum has gone down? We cannot say. If there is an election, we can show it. Otherwise, we cannot. People wants to change this political system.
Because we saw, Vijay sir, there was a rapid amount of work that was done by your councillors in the months of February and March.
Yes.
There was a lot of work, there was campaigning, you all were on the streets, you all were talking about people's problems. Now we're talking about the 50% increase in electricity tariffs, water tariffs. Who's talking?
No, we are.
Who is talking?
During election period.
No, tell me the political parties in parliament who are talking about the 50% water tariff that was increased recently.
Yes, we are talking that issue. We are doing some demonstration activities also. Health issue.
Health issue, yes. Health issue we agree. But talk about the water tariff, just tell me when. When have you all organized this? I want to know.
Actually, within the parliament, we have only limited time period. Today, I had only 4 minutes. How can I speak all issues?
No, but last February and March, it was not like that.
Not 50%.
So February and March also, you all had only 3 members in parliament.
No, we talk outside the parliament, not inside the parliament, in various stages, various forums. Today also, we are talking in various stages. Not only the water issue, but also the electricity issue and fishermen's issue and education, health issue. All subjects are discussing with various places.
Does the NPP see anything progressive done by the government?
Progressive?
Anything progressive done by the government? Some good step that the government has done the last 1 year? If you all are told to pick one, what could that pick be?
There were some.
Example?
Supported.
Yeah, example.
I can't remember. Only few. That's why I can't remember.
Only a few, but they've done something right.
Only few. We cannot say all things are wrong. There are some.
Now I will tell you a classic example: the QR code that was introduced by the arrogant minister that we spoke about.
Introducing QR code.
That was not a good thing.
Temporary solution.
And now you said no, that minister was arrogant and all. That's what I'm asking you.
No, actually, the minister was not introduced that system.
And the minister was not involved.
He publicized it among the people, but that was introduced by some officials. I know very well. But,
the minister took the
credit.
Advantages. That's right. That's correct. But we are not against all those things which government are taking. If there is a good thing, we are supporting.
The president said that the opposition has to all support good things that the government is doing.
As far as concerned, the today speech, the 13th Amendment. As a party, our position is 13th Amendment is not a solution to the ethnic issue in our country. We have experienced The 13th amendment was introduced in 1987. From that year to up to now, that problem has not solved.
That's because that has not been implemented properly.
What is the remaining thing? Only the police power. All other powers has been given. Even land powers and police powers. Land powers, actually, if we analyze thoroughly, all provincial councils can use land powers using this constitution. Only the police power has not been given. I am not talking about the north and east. Think about if we give police powers to southern areas. For example, the Chamara Sampath Dasanayaka, he is a former chief minister of Uva province. If we give police powers to Chamara Sampath Dasanayaka, what will happen? Most of Sri Lankan people watched his video, what has happened in Prospect area. The small group of security person was there. He behaved as a joker. And if we give police powers to such type of person, then what will happen to other areas?
But we have, we have members of parliament who were seen on video throwing chili powder. Right. We saw we see now state ministers who were pulling the microphone of the speaker. They are all appointed to parliament. So why are you just differentiating only on the police powers and saying that Chamara Sampath Dasanayaka's incident as an isolated incident?
It's an example. Likewise, if we give those powers to those types of people who engage to that incident, then what will happen? It is dangerous to our country. Because of that reason, we have to think about that. Not.
Can I ask Shanikin's thoughts on this?
For example, in 1983, during the Black July incident was happened, who was the IGP in our country? Rudra Rajasinghe, the Tamil IGP was there, but he couldn't control that situation.
No, but though he know what happened at that time. 83 riots, we all know how the president was empowered to take action.
That's the case.
That's not about the IGP who was there.
That is not a fault of him.
Yeah, that's not a fault of him.
If we can give a independence to our police, the total independence.
Not, but Vijay, I don't know whether you remember.
Real police can do their duty.
We had IGP saying that 80% of the OICs who are appointed to police stations are political appointees.
That is the case.
What are we talking about?
That is the case. There is no.
What are we are talking about giving police powers to chief ministers when we know 80% of the OICs who are appointed are political appointees.
Then the same thing will be prevail, right? We are giving the same police power to certain chief minister. Right.
And we have the Minister of Justice coming on this very show and saying the police are corrupt. You can't trust the police. That's what the minister said.
May I interrupt? When we discuss the devolving police powers to provincial councils, at that time there was not a discussion on independence of police. It came later. Now the irrespective of provincial boundaries, the whole police should be placed on the independent commissions. So that is the norm today. So all the provinces has to accept that norm. We are for that, right? Giving the police power to certain politician in a certain province won't help this issue. That's what he is bringing, and you also highlighting the same fact. Don't give such powers to certain politicians.
No, but Shanikan, what are your thoughts on these police powers? Are something very contentious. You know, we are talking about this over and over again. Even the president has highlighted, you know, he's willing to give everything, but not that. But I remember Mahinda Rajapaksa was talking about 13th Amendment plus. We have to go beyond the 13th Amendment. And I don't know what that beyond part was or the plus part was. That's something to be discussed on a later date at a different forum. But what are your thoughts on these police powers itself?
I think there's a huge misconception about police powers. In fact, we had a meeting this afternoon with the Minister in charge of Public Security, Honorable Tiranalas. We went and met him in the afternoon, And actually we gave him the report. I think this report had been, I wasn't an MP at the time, I'm sure my colleagues were MPs at the time, where the the chief ministers from the southern provinces, the 7 provinces barring the north and east. So the chief minister of the north and the east didn't participate in this exercise. The 7 chief ministers from the 7 provinces in the southern part of the country put forward certain proposals, and Namal Rajapaksa was part of that committee as well, this parliament committee. I think JVP and at the time UMP were also signatories on that. Today when I saw it, I saw JVP and UMP also at the time, members of all these parties, including the SLFP, UMP, JVP and the ITAC, SLMC. Everyone had come up with had agreed on how these police powers can be given. So there's this huge misconception that the chief minister can, have a police and he can, he can do whatever he wants with the police. Even the provincial police will come under the IGP. The IGP will be the one who will be. It's just that I think the chief minister will, the appointment of the DIG for the province will happen with the concurrence of the chief minister of the province. That is the only difference. So the misconception is that people think that now let's say the northern province has its own police force, that that they can have their own uniform and that they can recruit as many people as they want and that they can buy weapons. It's all wrong. It's unfortunately it's a misconception that has been given to the masses. So I think this contentious topic of police powers has been just thrown out there so that political parties fight amongst themselves, right? And then the agenda is achieved. But I beg to disagree with Honorable Vijitha Herath about how the provincial councils have not been effective. It is because the eastern province didn't have a provincial council election after this. The northeast merged provincial council election happened in the late 80s. After that, till 2008, there was no eastern provincial council. And in 2008, the war was still not over. And only Pillayan, his party, contested that provincial council from the eastern province. Up until 2013, there was never a northern provincial council. And before that, it was a merged province and it was divided. So by the time Pillayan became chief minister, most of the powers that were vested under the provincial council were taken back to the central government. Now these are the powers that President is talking about right now in Parliament about giving it back. So, for the provincial council to effectively operate, there haven't been enough powers. But I do agree that there have been certain, Honorable Vigneswaran, when he was chief minister, I mean, there could have been things, he could have done things a bit more differently with the power that was there, without complaining about not having enough power only. He could have used some of the power that he had in hand. So, but I think, we have to build upon this.
But you fell out with Vigneswaran also, no?
Well, Vigneswaran, Vigneswaran fell out. We didn't fall out with him. He fell out and he went and formed his own party. And I think he'll probably fall out of, Parliament and, any political office very soon after when he contests another election. Because he's seen as, he's basically...
That's how you all want to...
No, not really. I mean, he was the only Tamil politician from the north and the east, from the opposition, who weren't part of the government, who supported Ranil Wickremesinghe when he contested for presidency through Parliament. He's the only one who is acting as president's mouthpiece at all these all-party conferences. At this, no disrespect to Honorable C. Vigneswaran, but at this point, I think he's just an MP from the Jaffna district. So if the president was to talk about a political solution just for Jaffna, Honorable C.V. Vigneswaran's opinion matters. But we are talking about a northeast provincial councils, or we are talking about Tamil people's issues comprising of 8 administrative districts. So it is the end of the day, it is what the TNA's position would be, the position of the people.
Yeah, Iran. What is the political future that you see as far as Sajith Premadas is concerned? I know he's your leader. You all have named him as your presidential candidate as well already. But things can change because we're talking about politics. If you look at the 2015 presidential election, Ranil Wickremesinghe was the candidate to contest the elections. And at the 11th hour, we heard it was Maithripala Sirisena who was contesting. We have Karunaratha Parameswaran sitting here as well. They also have a leader at this juncture. What is the political future that you envisage? Because we have individuals in the caliber of Dala Salah Perum as well, from a different political party, you know. So anything could happen.
So I think there can be as many candidates, you know, as people want to contest the election in a democracy. That's not unusual at all. But being the largest opposition party from the last elections, right, that certainly we have said it already that we will put forward our leader as our presidential candidate. I think that, I go back to that comment that, we are not just thinking only about an individual. We think that beyond, always you need to have a leader, and Sajith Premadasa is the leader. We are also saying that the problems that a country faces are very complex. And therefore, because of its complexity, we have to get away from this mindset that one person will come and solve all the problems. We've had, decades of this kind of thinking. I think
we thought Gotabaya Rajapaksa is going to be the same. We look at what into the country.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying that you need more than that. So you need really a team of people, and you need a team of competent people, you say, to basically, to really face the many complex issues that a country has. So I would say when people look at, a program, they should look at a program, and they should look at the people behind the program, and then make a decision as to whom they think can actually resolve the program and deliver on the program. So when they look at that, one thing that everybody needs to look at is, integrity and ethics needs to be looked at. You can't have the situation where I thought that Ranil Wickremesinghe, who came very unexpectedly into the presidency, who could have got his legacy rewritten, it was an opportunity, right? You had a minister who have allegedly, going by the media, had asked for some kind of bribe or something from an ambassador or something. I'm going by the media, right? And then
this was discussed in Parliament also.
The former president, right, basically removed him. And then Ranil Wickremesinghe comes in, and I don't know what kind of an inquiry or whatever he has, and he appoints him. So the point I'm trying to say is why I said about ethics and integrity is absolutely, I would say, number one principle. People is the number one principle, even more than policy. That doesn't mean that any political party has a completely clear slate. I can't claim that even for my own party, but I'm saying relatively speaking, you have to look at that. Then you have to look at that beyond that is, you have to look at the competencies, because when you're running any program, even if you're running your company, right, you have a certain policy, you have a strategy, you have a plan, and you want to implement it. And then you look at your senior management team. You have your CEO, and you have to have a senior management team, and then you look at people below. I think if you really want to deliver this country, you have to look at that. We have examples in the region. Whether you look at Japan, Korea, Singapore, Asian region, even, there are examples. Then these competent people may be in the system already, some of them. Some of them are not in the system. We need to increase those people coming into the system if we really want to deliver this. There are so many examples of how countries have been transformed. Even for the people in the Aragale, I told all the younger people, you have to transform your aspirations and goals and all into a political force. If you're young enough, you want to form new political parties, certainly form new political parties and come. That takes time. Imran Khan was one example, right? And it's getting highlighted at the moment because of his arrest and so forth. But he took 40 years, right? So that process doesn't matter. Even if it takes 20 years, forget the 40, 20 years, it's worthwhile. But for those who are more advanced in age, right, and who are involved in the change, I say join even an existing party, because people are important. And the right people need to come, irrespective of political parties. The right people need to come to the system.
Why am I getting the feeling, Iran, that you are trying to give a message to the gentleman on your right with regard to their political party as well?
No, I'm not giving a message to the gentleman on the right. I'm giving a message to the 150,000 people who are out there, and who a lot of them may be professionals, academics, right, who are out there. If you want to change the system, some have to come into the system. This staying back and thinking that others will change it for us will not work. They need to come into the system. And I'm saying it's irrespective of political party, because different people might decide we have to go from A to B. A blue bus comes, red bus comes, green bus comes, yellow bus comes. Get into the bus you think you're closest to. But please get into it rather than just stay on the sidelines, and we have to get there. We believe that the Samagi Janabala Vege, we are working hard at it, not only on the program of having the best team so that we can actually deliver on the program. Sajith Premadasa is the leader of that team, and even he is conscious of the fact that one person can't actually change this. I want to say a word on the provincial council system. 36 years that has been there, 36 years, and we are still debating its implementation, right? Any law has its pluses and minuses, right? Centralized government has worked in some countries, devolved government has worked in some countries. It's not a systemic issue. Where there is corruption and bad governance, whichever system you have, and we talked about that, about police powers now and having a, I mean, take a public opinion about our police today. What is the result you're going to get about it? Ordinary people come and tell you that, right? So I think the corruption issue needs to be looked at.
Countries like India,
yeah.
The system has really worked. The center has power, and the power has been devolved in all the states.
Yeah.
Tamil Nadu, for an example.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter which system you have to deal with corruption, abuse of power. This is why the rule of law, I always put it as a #1 issue in this country. Whatever system we have, the rule of law must work. If you look at today's president's speech, right, and to be fair by the people in the north, right, his statistics, he said only 203 cases, right, of the reparations office had given rupees 40 million. Only 203 cases. The complaints of missing people, his statistics, which I wrote down, was 21,374 complaints. Only 3,462 complaints have been investigated and completed after 14 years after the war. 14 years after the war. I mean, you can say it with feeling, right? You can say it with feeling. If you had lost a loved one, right? I have escaped. I'm not going to get into the details of that. I have escaped death like that, right? So if you had lost somebody actually in the family, then you will feel it. I'm saying is this. I'm saying is people are focused on systems and this and that and the other. But the reality, let's implement it. Mr. President, we don't need a long speech. Please implement it and get on with it. We can disagree and decide. When people see a system working, they'll get more confidence to go even further.
Yeah. So, Karatwalidana, now, what is your party and the JHU? Just tell me, because a lot of people say your party is like old wine in a new bottle.
No, this is a totally new political party.
So there is no affiliation with the JHU?
No
JHU.
No JHU at all, right? This is a new political party. We form new people, some old people also. Of course, partly Champikaranokka has been in various political entities, political parties, like all the others, basically. So that is the nature of politics. Now,
there are no friends and enemies. I remember there are no friends and enemies in politics. 2000.
No, not that metaphor.
When he was appointed as a common candidate, I still remember the press conference. His opening remarks was, "There are no friends and enemies in politics." When he was posed a question about how did he find ways to work with Ranil Wickremesinghe.
This is a famous metaphor, right? Disregarding that, we form these political parties considering the emerging new political realities, right? So we are a totally new political party.
All ideologies, everything is new.
Yes, change, very much change. If you look
when you say change, that means you all had some political ideologies before. So these are new political ideologies.
Yes, I think I as a person, I was also attached to different political parties, but my ideology is democracy. Right, that ideology is
has that changed now?
It has not been changed. Right?
Okay.
So that is there, right? The ideologically, with this we are addressing new realities, new political realities, new social realities, new economic realities with a kind of
I will ask you
program.
a very generic question. Now we have a lot of problems. We spoke about the education crisis in the country, the Asrasuma program. Vijay brought that issue up. Then we have the health crisis. How would your party solve these matters?
Yeah, that is a very good question, right? Now, with the government policies and actions, what we see, acute, devoid of empathy. That is one. So this actually, my friend Vijita here has mentioned that there is no criteria in handling these grave issues with the government. On the top of that, there is a devoid of empathy. So one of our policy is first you have to have the empathy, right? If you look at what happened in Udawalawa area, the people, I think 3 days back, the government decided to release the segment of water from Samanalawa to Udawalawa. Everyone knows that, right?
This is a farming.
It is not a new thing. It has been there for many years. That is the practice. Is Ratnapura area. I am representing that district. So it has been the practice. So when there is a shortage of water in the Udawalawa, ordinary practice was get some water, release some excessive water from Samanalawa. The people demanded that. People demand on the July 7th, this government also, officers of this government, they promised that they would release that required water, but it was not materialized. So why is that? What is the problem? Is there any there was a criteria, the practice, there is a practice and the criteria also, but this government didn't show the empathy towards the victimized people. Our one cardinal policy is, if you look at the social issues, you have to have the empathy first.
What I'm trying to figure out is, Mr. Bharanathan, now, when matters of this sort happen, now, when there is not enough water, then when there is a need to buy emergency power, suddenly the Norachole power plant breaks down.
Actually, I am not expert on what is.
But your leader.
Yes, he's fully aware of that. But
yeah.
as a person, I am not in that background. Also, my background is political science and social science. So I am not. I am not in a position to detail what's happening in Norachole. But the power and energy policy, we have a sound power and energy policy in our party. We are developing that. So, with regard to the economic downfall of this country, we insist that we emphasize the fact that this country should be above all income generating country, right? So some parties they don't look at that aspect. They only.
When you say some parties are not looking at that aspect,
it is highly that can be a kind of unbecoming practice to mention some certain political parties, but
not the SJB or the NPP or the.
I am not mentioning that some parties they are not that much concerned about the income generating in the country. So our prime concern is the prime concern of the Republican Party is the income generation. So we give the first priority for that. And the economic justice, that's what we are lacking here nowadays, right? We give undue, undecent concession for some segment of the society, some business tycoons, neglecting the rural sector. This is a grave issue. So our prime concern is uphold the economic justice. Like that, we have 5 cardinal principles, 5 cardinal values. So based on that, we will initiate a new political culture. So I think we can capture the future political audience.
You will be able to.
Yes, we believe that. Strongly believe that. Yes.
Which the income generation. What is your opinion about that?
That I used another word, increase in the domestic production. I think his idea also equal to that. Generating income means increasing the domestic production, agriculture and industrial sector and services sector.
Right.
And we can, unfortunately, because of some wrong political decisions, previous so many governments try to import many things from outside. Even today also, all ministers, if they face some difficulties, they try to, suddenly they say, yes, we can supply those goods importing from India or somewhere else. Egg, they are importing eggs. And lack of fish, they took a decision to import fish from outside. That is their easy answer.
Why do you think that is the easy answer?
Behind that, there is a hidden fact, the commission and right. Importing from other countries, the ministers and officials can earn some money using bribe and corruption. Even for a famous example, it's the sugar, importing sugar. There was a huge, big issue was happened there. But the rulers have not paid their attention to, pay their priority attention to increase our production. We can produce sugar in our country. We have enough lands and enough resources, and natural resources and human resources. But the rulers don't pay their attention to that. Because of that reason, we had to obtain so many loans from outside because of the collapse of our economy. The earning income is the best thing to overcome these economic challenges. Otherwise,
what is your take about privatizing state-owned enterprises?
There are some, because of the collapse of those institutions. As a principle, we are not agree with that. But if we take the Lanka has faced so many difficulties. In that case, specific case, we will consider that case, and we have to actually not privatize, we can restructure. The management can be given to private sector, the ownership must be held by the state.
But now,
for example, IOC is an Indian government company, but the management is different. Using the private sector management system, we can maintain those.
If you look at the board of directors of Sri Lankan Airlines, so most of them are tycoons in the private sector.
But political appointed director boards, though they are belongs to private sector, there are
Sri Lanka Telecom and Sri Lanka Insurance. What's your take?
Sri Lanka Insurance also, we cannot say it's total private. Half of that is private. I think 49%.
49% private and 51% government.
But the political interference was there.
No, but what is the NPP's position on privatizing companies like Sri Lankan Airlines, Sri Lanka Telecom, and also Sri Lanka Insurance? What's your take? Because right now the debate is about privatizing these state institutions.
No, we are not saying all those state-owned enterprises must be privatized.
But do you all agree that? But does your party have an opinion with regard to government getting into businesses? What's the take?
Some key areas, the power and energy, and financial sector. Our position is those areas must be run by the government. Some other areas we can think about that.
You also mentioned that most ministers are corrupt.
Yeah.
So then we have
in this government and this situation, but it is totally different from our government.
But predominantly, whatever government that has been there has been corrupt.
No, that is the difference of NPP government and this Rajapaksa government. If there is not such,
a lot of people say that NPP doesn't have a clear vision for the country. Now,
actually, we have.
If you look at it, you all criticize always.
No, we are criticized, and we have.
But you all have a plan.
We have.
What would be your income the exports and income generation for the country? What plan do you have for that?
Within the 2-3 minutes, I cannot explain to whole.
Tell one.
And
because
you
right
earlier
now
asked,
everything seems to be going wrong. So we
right. Okay.
love to have.
You asked a question from me. Was there any supportive proposals which was taken by the government. Yes, today itself, the Fisheries Minister brought 4 gazette notifications. We supported totally today. We did not oppose that. I remember that actually the bribery and corruption must be eradicated first of all. It must be done first of all. Then people have a ambition. Then the country have a real future. Then we will say to the people, as a country, as a people of Sri Lanka, we will develop a country without corruption and in the transparent system. Then we can, first of all, we give priority to small and medium level productions. It is the engine of the economy. For example, the China paid their attention to those areas at the beginning of the Chinese economy, developing the Chinese economy. Today they are developing large factories and large industrial areas. But at the beginning of Chinese economy, they started from the micro and medium level industries. Our position is also same. As a bankrupt country, we cannot take large industrial mechanisms. We pay our attention to those that area. The small productions are there.
Now, Mr. Herath, if you remember, 2011, the Expropriation Act that was brought to take over underperforming and state-owned assets.
Yeah.
Remember the 2011 bill that was brought by Mahinda Rajapaksa as the Minister of Finance in his capacity?
Yeah.
So at that time, institutions that were handled by the private sector was taken over by the government.
Yes,
and look at the status of those companies now.
But because of the bad political culture, though they obtained as the government institutions, they couldn't implement the real management system in those sectors. If there is no such a political culture, we can develop, for example, petroleum corporation. Earlier, government said that petroleum corporation has faced so many economic difficulties because of the excess officers and services and their high level salaries.
Right.
What is the present situation? The profit is 83 billion rupees in this year, from January to June.
So I just want to ask Iran's thought. Now, Iran, you've been in the private sector for a long time as a banker. What is the position of the SJB on Sri Lanka Telecom, Sri Lanka Insurance, and other companies being privatized?
Yeah, so I would say that the first principle is, right, and this hasn't been discussed in this country, consumers first. That's the first principle. And then safeguarding the rights of workers. Safeguarding the rights of workers have been spoken in this country for decades, but the consumer hasn't been spoken about. And the SJB is very clear that consumers, or millions of consumers, that principle needs to be looked at, and also the principle of safeguarding the rights of workers. I would go further and say then, if you're talking about ownership, the way to look at it is, right, is that there are strategic things which will need the government to make sure. For example, defense. If you take energy security, if you take food security, so these are strategic arguments. So we will want to make sure that there's food security, we'll want to make sure that there is energy security. I'm using examples. So in achieving that, sometimes some ownership becomes necessary, right? In addition to that, arrangements are necessary sometimes, even on food security, local as well as international arrangements. Energy security, same thing can happen, you see. So we'll look at it strategically first. Then there is no one answer in terms of you know, what do you own, what do you sell, what do you close down. One thing's for sure.
There's no cherry picking, right?
Yeah, yeah. But one thing is for sure, you know, like you take, like, for example, Sri Lankan Airlines, because you brought it up, a 400 billion loss. The poor taxpayer is paying for it. The poor man is paying for it. We just can't have it that way. So there are structures that you can look at, right? So the decision to keep Sri Lankan Airlines in the air, right? If you were a private sector company, you may have shut it down. But if it is government, government doesn't look only at financial return. Government looks at other socio-political reasons. So for socio-political reasons, if you decide you can keep it for strategic reasons or socio-political reasons. If you keep it for socio-political reasons, the decision is made, then you look at structures of eliminating losses or minimizing losses. And then there are various structures that can be there. And Sri Lankan Airlines in particular, there are lots of structures. In fact, I have chaired a committee, I've given, with all the experts in it, given a written report to the former president of the country. I won't get into that it can be looked at. So you have to go, I think, one by one, right? If you can't have one fixed thing and say this is the only way we'll do it. Structures will differ one by one, the structures will differ. Other thing is have an institution in government, right? Because we have the examples in the Asian region. We have Temasek, right, in
model,
right, yeah, and then you have Khazanah in Malaysia, right, where the government is really the investor, right, and people are appointed to the boards independently of the politician. In our structure, what happens is I become a minister, I have several institutions under me, I am deciding who is going to serve on those boards, and we need to get out of that. We want to centralize it, right, in an institution and independent of the minister. The appointments should go into commercial activity, right, that they could be appointed. So we have really thought through these structures quite a bit. We have professional committees and we have academic committees. We have 27 areas that we have basically pre-designed in working out our program. Right, we gave the blueprint on the macroeconomy, but we have gone further than that now. We haven't gone public with it yet, and we are also inviting the public to contribute. We are going online on that one, and 27 areas of getting more into detail of how we will actually implement it. If I could say another quick word, the past we have seen under the Rajapaksa regime, the investment has been on hard infrastructure. We are very clear, right, that as a SJB, that we are really going to look at soft infrastructure. It's going to be education, and health is going to take priority. Because we think two comparative advantages this country has. One is location, the other is human resources. Because we are such a small population. That's where we need to invest. So 1.5% of GDP investment in education is insufficient. We need to increase that. We need to gradually get that up to 3. So the free education concept of actually providing everybody education, but really not free education as defined today. It's really access to education, equal opportunity. That's what we are after. We are not after this idea that the government should be the only supplier of education. We are talking of government, we are talking of the private sector, we are talking about non-government, non-profit distributing. The world has seen that. There are lots of models in the world, all of this. So everybody gets access to it. The role of the government is in quality and in regulation.
Right.
That's where the government needs to go. Yeah. So this is important. We want all Sri Lankans with a high education, not university only. Universities can be expanded, but vocational training, absolutely important, and we want to we want to open that opportunity.
Right.
We've already commenced conversations with the vocational training institutions as well, and obtain their views on this particular thing.
Sharikan, what are your thoughts? I've very seldomly seen your political party voicing concerns about issues of privatization and so forth, so on and so forth. I would like to learn a little bit more about your political party's stand on matters of this sort.
Sure. I mean, finally a question where I could answer that doesn't earn me a Kotia card in this country. Generally, it's very unfortunate that, you know, as soon as the TNA MP gets on any of these programs, all the questions are generally limited to things that, I mean, I can't blame media also, because very rarely do TNA, I mean, not very rarely, but only a few of us would come on these media channels, so you have to get some of the answers out of us. But I am
But
glad
I must
that
say,
you...
we've had a lot of TNA
course.
parliamentarians and representatives attending the show throughout the last few months.
I would... a lot
We've
is a bit
always
of a-
asked, we asked for representation.
I know. a lot is probably
Very subjective.
yes, but no, that's not. I mean, it was an accusation at the media. I was just saying that I'm glad of getting an opportunity to say something.
Yeah.
Well, our party has, we haven't really formulated a overall national, economic plan. But we have had a blueprint for the northern province. Earlier, we have also worked on a blueprint for the eastern province, and we have also worked on a blueprint that where the north and the east we feel complement each other. Some of the resources in the north and the east definitely need to complement each other for it to be a successful unit. Unfortunately, connectivity has been one of the biggest issues, especially it's been one of the biggest drawbacks as to why the north and the east with so much of resources has not been developed. You see, the tourism, Minister of Tourism talks about 100,000 tourists coming into the country a year, but I think not the percentage. If there is a survey done, I think I wouldn't think even 5% of these tourists would have traveled to the north and the east, all the 8 districts. So I think the connectivity is one of the biggest problems that really needs to be addressed. And also, I think another thing is racism. As long as racism is there in this country, I mean, why I say that is that just after President Ranil Wickremesinghe concluded his tour to India, there was this proposal about a bridge or a land access route to southern India. Now, without looking at the benefits of, having access to an entire, the southern states of India, I saw a lot of criticism about how Tamils live in the north and the east, and now it's going to get connected to Tamil Nadu, and it was seen in a detrimental, it was seen as a detrimental thing. So that is only because it's looked at racially. But in terms of privatization, I would say, directly to answer your question, in terms of privatization, I would say that privatization should be done for the benefits of Sri Lankans. If there is privatization is being looked at, it should benefit Sri Lankans, not the ones who are at the forefront of privatizing. Now, there are serious questions about Sinopec coming into the country. There are a lot of allegations, that certain new group of ministers have become billionaires overnight. I'm not saying this. Their fellow former cabinet ministers are saying that. There are a new lot of them have become billionaires, especially this Sinopec and all. There are large number of accusations. So likewise, I think even with the, you specifically mentioned Sri Lankan insurance, I think Sri Lankan insurance, I think there are 2 sections of it. One is the life insurance part, and the other one is the accidental and incidentals part of it.
The motor.
Yeah, this is not just the motor where you pay claims. I think the one that the retirement one is actually a very profitable operation, whereas
The life insurance.
The life insurance. So, if even with the Sri Lankan, the privatization, I think the catering and the ground handling are very profitable sections of that. We were told that there were moves to privatize or sell off the profitable sections of it, right? This is in the past. So this shouldn't happen. So if privatization is to be looked at, it should, the first consumer is one, but then, is it going to benefit all Sri Lankans, or is it only going to benefit a certain number of people who are in the forefront of doing the deal? So privatization is not a bad thing. Privatization is not a bad thing. I mean, with more money, more investment coming in, the business could develop into a larger, the profit margins can be increased. That will benefit the entire country. But also, I think one of the things is, now again I'm coming back to the devolution part of it, how it can help. I think with devolution, provinces should start competing with each other in terms of, development. Now, if you look at the southern province right now, southern province, I would say, is overpopulated with tourists. The high-end tourists don't want to come to this country anymore because there's a lot of tourists who are, in the southern province doing, drugs, or, all the pristine beaches are now overpopulated. Why are all the tourists going to the south? Why can't we look at developing, the section above from Negombo? I mean, it's accessibility-wise, connectivity-wise, it's not that far to, it's closer to go to Negombo or just above from the airport than to come to the southern part. So how can we empower the provincial councils to, President in his speech had said something about establishing some tourist development, whatever, but law, legislation needs to be made by the provinces that where there's competition. So we can, for an example, if, southern province should have a larger taxation on future newer properties that are coming up, whereas the northwestern province should, give tax concessions for people who are going to come and set up there. So I think we need to, rather than stick to the old mindset of, just using, whatever we produce, we have excess production that we sell, and that's how we earn foreign exchange. We should look at modern ways of earning foreign exchange in this country.
So I'm getting a lot of questions from our viewers tonight. So this question is for Mr. Paranithan. Police powers are devolved in all states and union territories in India, even Pondicherry, which is half the size of Colombo. Even all emirates of UAE, including Al Quwain, a tiny emirate, have their own police. Why are our politicians just creating bottlenecks to bring instability to our country?
With regard to the police powers?
Yeah, with regard to police powers.
Yeah, this is depend on the political culture, democratic political culture. First of all, right? We are not against the devolution of power to communities, regions, like right. Any democratic means of ensuring the political participation of all communities, we are pro that. But the question of the police powers is, as I mentioned earlier, the whole gamut of issues were discussed at that time. I mean, I am referring to the 87 situation, when the Lanka Accord was signed. At that time, the devolution of power was discussed in terms of the insecurity situation prevailed in the north and eastern provinces. There was a big war between civilians and the security forces and the police, right? So that was in the same token, it was there in the southern part of the country also. So later on, discussion converted into another dimension, that is the irrespective of provincial council boundaries, you have an independent police. So that is the norm of the discussion right now, spirit of the discussion right now. What we are asking is, we are pro the devolution. As Vijita pointed out, now land powers, it is already implemented. There are certain issues that can be amicably sorted out once the provincial councils are elected, right? So with regard to the police powers, we are asking the whole communities, look at the look at the danger of the politicized police. Politicized police. One irresponsible chief minister who appoint the DG and all these things, he can ruin the entire province.
That is incorrect. The DI.
So we will have. So
I'll
ask
you one question.
That is
so you think Sarath Weerasekara being the minister in charge?
Yeah.
If the country had a minister like Sarath Weerasekara,
yeah.
I mean, I don't see why the chief minister. I mean, sorry, I'm doing your job, but I just couldn't resist asking you that. If Sarath Weerasekara was accepted by the country, I mean, he is an absolute joke. So, I mean, do you really think the person is the problem?
No, we are not accepting any individuals. The police powers, it has to be operated through independent commissions. So that is our norm. So all provincial councils also has to accept that norm. Apart from that, all the other powers, the central government has portion of that, and the provincial council enjoy certain powers. If there are disputes between regions and the center, there should be a mechanism to sort out those issues. We are not opposing that mechanism.
But do you believe that the center is able to run a police force better than the provinces?
This is not the question.
Yesterday we had a situation where some excise officers who were on a raid were arrested by the police.
I saw the.
And then both sides had press conferences against each other.
Yeah, I saw the news. This is a very pathetic situation. That's why we are asking to establish a full-fledged independent commission which is answerable to the parliament, right? So that independent commission can decide the contours of the regional police powers also.
So,
but our point is, don't give such powers.
So we've seen, Mr. Varanathan, over the years, over the last few years in particular, the anti-nationalistic rhetoric has been playing a center stage in the Sri Lankan political fora. How does your political party intend to combat such moves going in for an election year next year?
The nationalism is there is a, I think we have to distinguish the different manifestation of nationalism. There is a manifestation of civic nationalism in one hand. On the other hand, there are different versions of ethnic nationalism. So, and in the democracy also, there is the norm of majoritarian democracy, and there is another norm of plural democracy. So, with regard to the nationalism, we believe the prevalence of civic nationalism, not ethnic nationalism, right? Single nationalism or Tamil nationalism, something like that. So, those things can be lead to kind of chauvinism. So, we are not for that.
We saw that happening in Sri Lanka.
It happened, but we are talking about.
But now, what is the vision of? I know the political vision of the SJB, the TNA, the NPP. We've discussed all this in these platforms over and over again. I would like to know the stand of the United Republic front as well on this.
Because we are a new political party, you are not exposed very much to our policies and actions, right? So that's what I have been elaborating on nationalism. On nationalism, we accept it as a reality. It is.
What do you mean by reality?
Reality means nationalism. You get nationalism everywhere in the country, everywhere in the world, right? Everywhere in the world.
But isn't it the responsibility of political parties to
let me clarify.
eliminate that?
Yeah, there are different manifestations of nationalism, right? If you look at the sociological aspect of that, nationalism is a reality of human beings, right? So everyone share a bit of nationalism when it comes to politics, right? So
that's not healthy.
No, that is you. I believe that you are exposed to certain stereotypes of nationalism, right? We strongly believe of the prevalence of civic nationalism. We don't believe sheer ethnic nationalism, right? On democracy also, we don't believe the majoritarian democracy. We believe the prevalence of plural democracy. So in that spirit, so I think we will be able to create a constitution and a social contract in which the minorities, the majority communities enjoy the political power in a free and fair manner. So that is our policy.
Did you say create a constitution? That is another amendment?
Social contract, yes.
My God, how many have we had so far?
21, 22.
22.
Yeah, there are certain flaws in this constitution, right? That's why we are talking about amendments, reforms, new constitution. So if we are going for a
Over and over again, if you look at it, the last 4 amendments have been passed by the same parliament that is sitting.
What is that?
The 17th, the 18th Amendment to the Constitution, 19th Amendment to the Constitution, 20th Amendment to the Constitution, all the parliamentarians who were there have been voting either in favour or either against.
Yeah, this is the nature of the parliament, yes.
That's not the nature of the parliament, that's the nature of the people that we have elected to parliament.
Yeah, both. Yeah.
Vijay, I have a question for you from one of our viewers. A small portion of society appears to continually enjoy exclusive privileges in the country. When are social mechanisms going to be established to meet the needs of the poor?
Actually, there are so many social problems are facing by the people because of the collapse of the economy and the bad political culture. I think if we overcome that challenge, we must implement the real new political culture in our country. Without doing that, we cannot completely overcome those challenges. There are so many areas we have to consider. That's he is explaining about the social issues. I think within short limited time, I agree with that. There are so many issues because of this.
What the person is saying is, a lot of people, a section of the communities are privileged, and there's another section of the community who are very poor.
Yeah, because of the imbalance of the economy, and all governments are taking their decision on behalf of some sectors of businessmen and some sectors of their supportive groups. For example, domestic restructuring program. Government took a decision only on behalf of primary dealers and private bank owners. They actually suppressed the EPF members, the huge members of the EPF. And they are reducing their interest rates. Likewise, all governments are taking their decisions on behalf of the small group of their supporters,
Right.
not because on behalf of the poor people. That is the injustice of the economic policy. That's why I said that we have to introduce and implement the real political culture.
You spoke about the assessment program as well, I remember the World Bank report clearly indicates that over 7 million people are going to live below the poverty line in Sri Lanka as the economy gets strained. And if you look at the assessment program, only around 2 million people are going to be benefited. What's going to happen to the rest of the 6 million people?
Yes,
there's a big question mark.
They will suffer a lot.
They will suffer a lot. You know.
The World Bank introduced that program, not assessment, whatever the name, because of the political interference of the Samurti.
Samurti, absolutely.
It's a totally the machine of the election, the totally corrupted mechanism. That's why World Bank said to our government, please introduce this type of transparent system using software package. But government couldn't succeed that target, and they did the same wrong thing again and again. Because of that reason, poor people are suffering a lot. The idea is okay, the concept is okay. Actually, without any political interferences, if we can implement a real such a program among the poor people, that is good. The concept is good, but the practice is not good.
Right, so I want to give each speaker 3 minutes now to conclude and tell us the way forward. In your opinion, what your political party would do for the country to be made better. So I want to first of all start off with Karunath Paranithana, former Deputy Minister as well as Politburo Chairman of the United Republicans Front.
We emphasize the wealth generation as our prime concern for the country, because above all we are facing a severe economic downfall at the moment. So all political stakeholders in this country, they have to seriously look at the economic situation of the country. As a political party, we place it as our utmost goal. In the meantime, in achieving that, there should be the economic justice, and you have to adhere to the norm of empathy as your general practice, and the democracy mean, as I earlier pointed out, it should be the plural democracy, not the majoritarian democracy, that you outshine the other rights of the other communities. We are definitely, we insist that it should be the plural democracy, and on the welfare of the people. So we don't believe that certain neoliberal principles on privatization, education, commodification of education like that. So we strongly promote the education should be education, health, and those kind of services should be placed on the base of non-profit entities, as those should be placed on as non-profit entities. Democracy should be prevailed in the country, and if we are going to change the constitution or that kind of going to take that kind of a grave decision, it has to be come through a big wider consent of the society, not according to the whims and fancies of some individuals. It is happening there. So I think the people there should be a wider participation of people in that kind of decision. So for that, the time to time, the elections should be, I think, held. So those are our main cardinal policies and actions as per the time being. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Karath Varadhan, former Deputy Minister. I now move my attention towards Shanikan Rasmanikam, Member of Parliament of the TNA.
Well, as soon as the President got elected through Parliament, we put forward a few proposals. First of all, what we put forward was accountability for all these financial crimes that were committed, and for the reason why this country's economy miserably failed and the country was bankrupt and 22 billion people were put in this situation. We very clearly said that, you know, to actually punish them or to actually bring justice, bring them in front of, you know, court or some sort of judicial mechanism, that the President cannot depend on the same people who brought this country down for his parliamentary majority. So what we proposed at the time, I think, was a national government comprising of somebody from the opposition as a Prime Minister, not somebody from the SLPP as a Prime Minister and then cabinet of SLPP. So I think it is still, you know, in my opinion, it's still not too late for President to make things right. Because if you look at it, very recently there was a committee formed to inquire into why the country became bankrupt. And Sagala Karyavasam, who is the SLPP secretary, was appointed as the chair. You know, I was also appointed to that committee. So even in the last minute, I went and asked Sagar, I said, please do not do this. I'm the only member of the opposition. At least now, you know, you say that this is not right, I will resign. But then they still went forward. So I think the President needs to, the people of this country came onto the streets demanding that, you know, the right thing should be done. But it's just the same thing, you know, it's the same thing, you know, different set of people doing the same thing over and over again. So that is something that needs to happen straight away. And also further going forward now, IMF's agreements, any of these are not long-term sustainable solutions. You know, we are not paying any of our debt back. We are just, you know, all our debt has been put on hold. Whatever foreign currency exchange that we receive, we are just, you know, it's basically like we are running the country almost as if a corner shop, you know, like a convenience store. So to put an end to that, we really need to look at attracting foreign direct investments. And I think the way to attract foreign direct investments would be to create some zones in the northern province, create some zones in the eastern province, increase the connectivity. And to do that, you know, the government and the country needs to give the international community that this is a different government, that this government is has different policies as opposed to the SLPP government and or the Rajapaksa government, that they're genuine about reconciliation, that they're genuine about inquiring into, you know, crimes against humanity that were committed. But in fact, we are doing the complete opposite. We have the personal counsel of Gotabaya Rajapaksa representing us at international forums right now. So I don't think you know, that's the message that we are giving to the international community. So I think that needs to be that needs to change.
Thank you very much, Shanikan Rasmanikam, Member of Parliament of the TNA. You had to say it, no, Shanikan. You just can't.
That's the truth, though. I mean, he was the finance minister when Gota was in trouble. He was the justice minister when Gota was in trouble. You know, so now Gota's in trouble. He wants to go to America. He's the foreign minister. So I have to say facts, no?
Right, I now move attention towards Vijit Herath, Member of Parliament representing the NPP.
Actually, may I explain my party?
Yes, position, yes.
Final round. Okay,
Yes.
okay. Actually, as a country, we have faced so many difficulties for so many economic challenges. I think if we can change this situation to changing the political culture and increasing our domestic production with a real plan, we can overcome these challenges. Without doing that, we cannot face that challenge. We can manage our debt using IMF support or World Bank support or any other outside country support. But it is not a solution to our economic stability. It is a plaster, the temporary plaster for our economic problem. These things are happening today. The government is taking support from IMF to adjust the debt sector. It is, but the government has not taken any decision to enhance the domestic production. That's why our export amount was collapsed as far as concerned the last year, and our import amount also collapsed as far as concerned the last year. And government has had an idea, had a plan to increase the tax in revenue. They estimated within this year to earn 3,130 billions per year. But after 6 months, the government has obtained only 741 billions. They couldn't even earn half of that target. If we analyze the last 6 months, we can say in future, in another next 6 months also, can earn only such amount. Then total is 1,500 billion. The estimate amount is 3,130. The IMF has prepared all plans on behalf on the basis of that targets, and IMF suggested to our government to increase that tax revenue in next year 4,463. If we increase that amount, we can say in the arithmetic formula, but in the reality, we cannot do that. Therefore, we have faced so many difficulties in future. Therefore, we must take a tough decision to enhance our domestic production with the new political culture and with new political leadership. That is our idea.
And that political leadership should come from the NPP?
Yes, according to our principle,
right.
We say under the NPP leadership, under the Anuradisa Nayaka, leader of our party.
So no common candidate?
No, he is our party candidate.
Right, okay.
NPP candidate.
Good to know, good to know. Right, I now move my attention towards Ran Wickramaratne, Member of Parliament of the SJP.
So one huge thing that needs to happen in the country is to actually create unity, getting everybody in the same direction. And I'm particularly reminded today in particular with the demise of Percy, who I can almost see with my eyes carrying the Sri Lankan flag and running onto the different fields from the Colombo Oval and the SSC, to some of the grounds overseas when Sri Lanka was playing cricket. It had every section of our society whether it was caste, class, economic grouping, all kind of united. And really, he was a symbol, really, of unity. And I would just pass on the condolences of all of us to his family. One of the big issues that Sri Lanka has is it's a trust issue. Mr. Paramithana talked about like independent commissions and all that. I'm in agreement with all the concepts, but there is a trust deficit. That's a problem. How do we actually bridge the trust deficit? And ultimately, you are down to really people in bridging the trust deficit. Who are the people that we could actually ultimately trust? We are also, SJB is also a new political party. We've never held office as SJB. We have, of course, some seasoned politicians who came from the United National Party, and then we have some others who have also joined in. So the question is, you need a leader and you need a team. And to look at the leader and the team and see if the trust deficit could be minimized. A lesson from Lee Kuan Yew was that he said ultimately somebody has to make the decision. So even when they had their central, I can't remember, intelligence bureau or whatever, which looked at corruption, the journalists asked him, but who appoints them? And he said the Prime Minister appoints them. And then the whole question came about how do you judge the judges, because the Prime Minister is appointing them. And he said, yes, there's a problem there. So if the secretary disagrees with me of a particular ministry, he can go to the president. And Singapore has a president without executive power, but there's a president. And if the president agrees with the secretary, then the president's view holds over the prime minister's view. But if the president agrees with the prime minister, then their view holds together. So ultimately, somebody has to make the decision, even if you have independent commissions. But the question is a trust issue. Who do people actually trust? So rule of law and trust is absolutely important. The final point I would make is this. The SJB, we are a social democracy. As a party, a social market economy. And the social market economy, we pay heavy emphasis on growth and on investment. This economy has been really contracting. It contracted in 2022. It's contracting heavily still. In 2023, we haven't still gone into a growth phase, and we have to actually reverse it. You need the investment. We need to give exports a pride of place. And we have to basically get rid of all our fears. In one lifetime, when I was born, we thought the United States of America was the largest force in the world, and then Europe. In one lifetime, Asia has risen. 500 years ago, China, but in one lifetime, Asia has risen. India is growing at tremendous pace. India is growing. And we are basically on the doorstep. We are the gateway to this subcontinent. We need to have a plan. When the question came about connectivity with India and the road,
right.
That's an idea Karu Jayasuriya came up long ago. In 2003, I traveled with Ranil Wickremesinghe to India, right? India Today conference on India tomorrow, on the connectivity. We need to be open, because if that economy is growing, Sri Lanka is a very small economy, we can grow with it. Bangladesh's exports to India are more than $1 billion. Sri Lanka's is less than 50 million. Tremendous opportunity. We have the confidence that we have the policy and we have the team. And if given the opportunity, we know that we can reverse this.
Right. Thank you very much, Eran Wickremaratne. Thank you very much, Karu Paramithana, former Deputy Minister, as well as Politburo Chairman of the United Republican Front, for joining us this evening on Face the Nation. Eran Wickremaratne, Member of Parliament of the SJB, Vijay Herath, Member of Parliament of the NPP, Shanikan Rasamanikam, Member of Parliament of the TNF, joining us for the first time. Thank you very much, Shanikan, for making time. It was very difficult to catch you because you're always in Batiklo.
With the people.
Thank you very much, Niresh, for joining us. As always, Niresh is Consultant Director of English News at News First. I leave you tonight with a quote, as I always do. The best way to predict the future is to create it. Take care and good night.